Ahoy, my friends, Ryder here, and welcome back to another Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis video. Today, I will be taking a look at Aerith's Academy banner. We're going to be taking a look at the weapon, the costume, other weapons in the game that can be compared to it currently, where else we can get a water potency buff for our main physical magic attackers for the water element, and yeah, I'm going to give you guys all my thoughts on it, whether or not you should pull or not pull, and so that being said, let's get started. Alright, so first things first, guys. This weapon is the first weapon we have ever seen in the game, alright, where the potency actually changes between OB6 and OB10, which I do not like. I think that this is not a good direction for Applebot. I don't think this is a place they need to go. I think the only saving grace for this banner, guys, because it does this, if you see here at OB6, you can see here mid to mid on the potency for the water damage right here, guys, but if you go to OB10, it changes to high, which, in my opinion, frankly, is total bullshit. Now, I think that there's already a pretty big gap between free-to-play players and, you know, whale tier spenders, right? Now, when you start to change the potencies between OB6 and OB10, that gap is just going to get bigger, and it's already gigantic to the point where I feel like Applebot struggles with making content because it's so far across the board. You have a brand new player coming into the game, and then you look at the crash battles that are out, and they're just like light ages away from being able to even come remotely close to working on something like that, right? And there's not really a great catch-up system in the game. So further separating the power of players that are spending and those that are not, I don't think is in their best kind of overall approach. I don't think it's good for the game overall. So I will say, guys, right off the bat, if you're wondering about pulling on this banner, if you cannot get it to OB10, easy skip, guys. Plain and simple, right out the door. If you don't have the crystals or you don't want to spend all of your crystals just to get this weapon to OB10, I think easy skip all around the board, guys. There's a lot of reasons why I think this weapon is an easy skip. There's the only reason I think to go for this weapon would be to get it to OB10, and the only reason I think to do that would be because the stamps are so rewarding on this type of banner. Alright, now before we get into that, let's take a look at a couple of things, because, you know, this weapon boosts water potency, right? Now, if I take a look at my characters for water, for physical and magic, right? I run Tifa and Glenn. Glenn for physical, Tifa for magic. So if you go to Tifa's weapon right here, Feathered Gloves, which is her offhand for magic water, you can see that she does get a water damage buff here, right? So she can also take care of water potency on her own. Now, Glenn gets Slay the Day, which also raises his water potency. So, you know, physical, there is a physical water elemental attack dealer that can raise their own water potency, and one on the magic side. So if you guys have these weapons for Tifa and Glenn, that's even more of a reason that you can kind of step back. Alright, now to compare this weapon to some other weapons in the game that are similar, we have Red 13, alright, and we have Matt right here. Okay, so Red 13's Brilliant Collar, Matt's Luminary Sword, and Aerith's new weapon are all of the same kind of type, right? So this weapon, all these weapons are going to raise AoE elemental attack for the team. Red's will be wind, Matt's will be fire, and Aerith's will be water. Now let's take a look at some of the differences here, right? So at OB1 on the Brilliant Collar, it's going to go low to mid on the wind potency buff, which is the same for Aerith's weapon. However, this one is going to raise magic attack at the same time, alright? Now, also I think the R abilities are just way better on this. We take a look at OB6, and it's going to go mid to high, which is what I think Aerith should have been. I think if they were going to make a tier difference between potency on OB6 and OB10, it should have been mid to high for OB6 and high to high at OB10. That way you don't gate lock out a bunch of players from that high tier level. They can still do it in 2 casts, which, let's be real, depending on the circumstance, can be super annoying to have to do that second cast, like jump back to Guild War 10 using Lockblade on Cloud and needing to cast it twice, right, to get the high tier buff. Sucks. It sucks, right? But at least there's the opportunity to do it. This way right now with Aerith's weapon, it just locks you into mid. So they're trying to force people to spend their crystals, and I just don't think that it's a good approach. It feels slimy, it feels low, it's just like, right? Makes me feel a little bit weird. And then honestly, I think that Reds and Mats are actually better, except for the fact that at OB10 hers goes high on the first cast. That is definitely the best aspect of it, since these take 2. But the other aspects of these weapons I do think are better overall. Like this one has magic attack up for the team, and then if we go look at the Luminary Sword, which I don't have really leveled, here's at OB1, right? This one will be low to mid. Even this is low to high at OB6, I believe, right? Low to high, which is basically the same as mid to high, right? You're casting it twice anyway, but if you only cast it once, you get low. So that actually sucks more, which is a bummer. Sorry, Matt. Matt always getting the short end of the stick, dude. But he does have the magic attack up, and this one also goes low to high. So these are the other weapons that we're kind of looking at that are in the game that are similar to this that we can compare it to. All right, so now let's go back to the actual draw. Let's take a look at the weapon itself and the costume. All right, so before we do that, I want to see the animation. All right, better be some cool aura on the team, and no aura on the team. Just a water attack, all right? Now for the costume itself I think is pretty cool. It's simple, and I like the simplicity to it. You know, we're in a high school environment, an academy environment. There's only so much they can do with the costumes, so I think that, like, you know, realistically, out of the gate, just depending on the direction you go with certain costumes, certain characters are just going to get better ones, right? Like Tifa's looks great. Barrett is a PE teacher. You know, you're not going to like pull out a gem of a costume with a PE teacher as like the prerequisite, right? So it just is what it is. Aerith's is pretty simple. I like the rebel vibes. I really like the bamboo staff right here. It's a super cool weapon. The only thing I don't like is the mask, but I do like the ribbon and the flower and this overall simplicity of it. So I give Aerith's a 8 out of 10. However, the costume right here, guys, or the R abilities on the costume, I'm going to say this is the worst costume that has ever come out in the history of Ever Crisis, guys. Like, why are they so hell-bent on giving us these arcanums for tank, healer, supports? We've had literally more arcanums for characters that aren't DPS than actual DPS characters, which I think is getting ridiculous at this point because Aerith has so many great costumes. I just can never see an instance in which this is going to be used, unless you're in like the 0.1% of the top tier players of the game. You can actually somehow pull damage out of her or something like that miraculously. We have HP here, which is like one of the first R abilities that you can get on a costume from like when the game started, right? It's not even upgraded to 15. It's still right here just because they know they're going to bring this back, and HP is an easy thing to upgrade, right? They can say, hey, we started at 2, it's going to go to 3 when it comes back. Boom, done, guys. We figured it out, right? Yeah, but it's still terrible. It doesn't work for the game currently in this environment with what we're doing, right? And then we have this Arcanum, which is just, you know, if you love it, guys, I support it, but I think it's ridiculous. I think our abilities on this costume are just straight ridiculous. Even if you're a new player, even if you have none of Aerith's costumes, guys, this is not worth it. Wait for a costume with healing, buff duration, something that's going to help her with what she does. She is not a damage character, and she never is going to be. All right? All right, so other than that, the costume, aesthetically, sweet. Our abilities-wise, pretty crap. Now, the weapon itself, all right, so let's take a look. OB1, 396 magic attack, 380% magic water damage. All enemies, when buff is granted to self, 1.2 damage, and when HP is 50% or more, water damage is increased. All allies, low to mid. Now, the R abilities here I feel like could have been a lot better. I don't like that the R abilities are attack focused. I think that there could have been buff duration on here or something that would be useful to the rest of what she's doing in a battle. So it's a bit unfortunate, and even at OB10, there's nothing special about it, 46 over 39. For the support abilities, also nothing really special. We have magic attack boost, we have a single target heal on there, but it's only if it's in the main hand, and I can never see this weapon being run in the main hand. We have circle sigil boost, so it's okay, right? Then you get it to OB6, which is probably the sweet spot for a lot of players, but it's capped at mid, which is why I said, guys, if you can't get it to OB10, just let it go and come back to something later. We have other ways to raise that water potency up. You know, it does get a bit of a damage boost, but I just can't see how damage is a viable factor in this weapon for Aerith as a healer, you know? The duration goes to 20 seconds, and then, of course, at OB10, we get the high on the first tier cast, which is definitely great. 25-second duration. You get a 1.4 times multiplier, which would add 40% to 530, which is like, let's just say, roughly 400 and 400%. So this is doing around 900% when a buff is granted to Aerith. So it's definitely a strong weapon. it's so niche, guys. It's so freaking niche. I can't see really the damage as being a huge factor in this weapon. To me, this weapon is about the AoE water potency, and that's it. Everything else is just decorations and like fluff on top. So, I mean, honestly, it just depends, guys, on your account. You know, if you're super into Guild War, obviously this weapon is probably going to be impactful, but you can definitely wait to see if it is. We've had banners come out where we think they're going to be useful in the Guild War, and then they aren't. So it's always better to wait to see if you're actually going to use it or not. This weapon is pretty good across the board. I think it's like slowly over time we want to build up to having AoE elemental buffing weapons, one for each element. So this will be the third, so we'll be halfway there. So there are definitely some strong attributes to it, but I think for most people it's probably an easy skip. For me, I will probably go for it just because Guild War is one of my main sources of fun in the game, and the stamps are super inviting, so it's a lot easier. But if the stamps weren't like this, guys, it would be a 100% skip for me, absolutely, especially if this was limited, right? So I think that's pretty much it. There's really not much to say, guys. So you know, the weapon has its pros, it has its cons. It really just depends on what you want. But like I said, if you're not going for OB10, I think just kick it to the curb, and something better will come out on the horizon in the future. So I hope this video helped you guys with like a quick analysis of the weapon, what we have, what we don't have, and how to look at it. If you guys enjoyed the video, please don't forget to drop a like, subscribe to the channel for more Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis content. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.